All right. Today is March 30th, year 2025. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you. My goal for this project is to travel deep into the discovery of the paranormal. We all, from time to time, have experienced an occurrence that cannot be easily explained. In my website, jjallenghoststories.com, I claim that we are going to delve deep, scrape the rust off of your brains, and share stories, things of interest and concern. When we come into this world, out of the womb, and enter this three-dimensional relative world, we come into this place alone. Our scape, our vision, is of an isolation reality. We are totally subjective to personal feelings based on the tiniest and the largest of observations. And within this, we are influenced, good or bad, by what lives around us. I am on a journey of self-discovery that's probably why I decided to maybe go public with this. Just like many of you. That's the reason for doing the podcast. That's the reason for sharing stories with people that call in or decide to come and be a guest. And I appreciate each and every one of you. I've been looking on some of the analytics of the podcast, and here again, I am very new to all of this. I am no overall professional in any shape or form. I have had some experience in a little bit of broadcasting and webcasting before, so this is not exactly new to me. But I had taken a long hiatus from it. Just kind of doing other things, some documentary work with a friend of mine. I do love film. I love cinema. I love the arts and music especially. I really dig some music, man. Who doesn't, you know? But I'm getting to a point in my life where, you know, I'm getting a little older, as you can see. I think I decided to throw the video up today, and look at all these grays, man. This is something, man. I'm starting to get this holiday look to me all the time now. Hair's been leaving me for a while, but hey, I have charm and a little bit of personality. All right. Basically, we do have, I believe, a guest caller that's going to come in here in a little while. Really excited to hear that. If it doesn't show up, it's all good too. But basically, this podcast, this webcast, or whatever this thing is we're doing, is for me and for you. I'd like to explain that for years and years and years, I have really enjoyed Art Bell. Basically, Art Bell is the king, or has been the king, of ghost, paranormal, dark shadows. He really laid the foundation for really great work and the ability to share. these stories. Some are great, some are not so good, some are fantastic, and I'm like, whoa. Some are just totally unbelievable, and I'm like blown away. Unfortunately, Mr. Bell passed away in 2018. I think it was April of 2018. And the world misses him. I miss him. His style and his grace was just so on and professional. And he had that beautiful, creamy, deep voice that echoed out and went across the band waves. And you just knew that voice. He was, to me, very incredible. A great guy. Never met him, never talked to him. But I'm one of the biggest fans there can be. I am really not trying to emulate what he does totally, but it's a bit of a guideline. Hey, why not? Everyone has their own style, and I am no Art Bell. I am just good old J.J. Allen, and I, like him, I have always enjoyed crazy, beautiful ghost stories and stories of the paranormal that have been around for, forever. It goes all the way back to the Bible. It goes all the way into, every civilization talked about spirits and spiritual connections. And where we are located in Stanton, Virginia, it is a very historic. It is a very historic town in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley, about 35 miles west of Charlottesville, Virginia, UVA, and it just nestles right in the little valley community. A lot of Civil War history here. A lot. The Thorn Rose Cemetery has got. I'm not sure exactly how old the cemetery is, but my father indicated that, back in the olden days, he's passed on, like we talked about last podcast, but he basically said, when he was a little boy, the cemetery was here. I believe it was established. I have to look on the date plaques. I'm thinking probably late 1700s. This town is really old. I think the Stanton was established, I believe it was 1732. And at one time, throughout the Civil War history, that Stanton actually was the capital when Richmond fell to Sherman for a short stint of time. And a lot of the old buildings that are still existing, there's a Presbyterian church off of Frederick Street, that there's some old photographs of that being around in 1865. And it is a phenomenally large church, brick, architecture just out of the world. I love architecture. But it has been around for since then. A lot of the houses that line the streets in the middle of the town are of the basic 1820-ish, 1840-ish, some really old houses still kicking around here. And basically a lot of ghosts are, probably walking the streets, who knows, and everything. But basically, my situation as a young boy had started out from me growing up in a very old log cabin in Augusta County in the heart of Buffalo Gap, Virginia, right off of Route 42, which is an old route there, old highway. And, I experienced ghostly phenomena starting out from probably the 4 to 5 year old age bracket. And I actually woke up as a very young kid. I remember I was just beginning to drink from a cup not a sippy cup, but a cup, like a plastic glass cup. Sippy cups weren't even invented back then. I'm so old. But anywho, I remember just waking up thirsty one night, and I looked to the right-hand side of my little bed, and I saw two figures. It looked like a dad, and it looked like a son. And to be quite frank about it, being so young, I was not really familiar with colonial dress of any sort, And they had the long flowing shirts, it looked like, and, hand-sewn clothing, that kind of thing. But what really and truly intrigued me was the fact that they were contained. Their composition was so incredibly detailed, and their composition looked like cigarette smoke. It wasn't wispy. It wasn't floating. It wasn't cloudy. It was just like looking at the person standing next to you, 4 or 5 feet away, maybe closer. By what I recollect, it was closer. And basically just looking at them, looking at me, and of course, I was astonished, and I was absolutely terrified being such a young child. And I remember them being so crystalline clear that they blinked. Yeah, I still remember that. I am almost 58 years old now, and I still recollect that. And I was like, wow, what in the world is this? And I remember I pulled the blankets over my head, and I just, here again, I'm so young, I don't know to call out to God or pray or whatever. And I was like, hey, just please go away, please go away. And they didn't. At that time, they were still standing there. And I don't know, here again, being a very young child, I'm not, I don't know what happened. But that was my absolute first encounter with something that was really strange. And, in my beginning intro here, we're talking about we come into this world being totally subjective to everything, that comes to us. You got to think about being a very young child. And I like to talk about deep things, and I like to talk about things that no one else talks about, because it just seems like it's just blasé or not that important to and it's not that important to everyday living. So I'm taking a momentary chunk of time here dedicated to this subject, and asking you guys, the audience, to go, hey, take 15 minutes or take 20 or 40-minute whatever you want to do, and talk about this really striking, situation that has happened. So, that's happened with that. So, life here again is I remember being so small that every day that you are that small, and you're growing every single day at such an exponentially quick rate that all the information is going into you so quickly, and it is coming into you like on a, like I remember the first time I saw a butterfly. So that just sounds really hokey and corny and simple. Yes, it is. I remember the bees and then the butterflies and then seeing flowers for the first time and seeing the sun translucent through leaves on trees and bushes. And yes, it sounds very simple. It sounds very simplistic and unimportant, but to a child, it's extremely important. And that's kind of what I'm getting at too. I'm making kind of an analogy that you're learning your environment. You're learning what is real. Your parents, if you have both of them, you're lucky enough to have both of them. I had grandparents that lived on the property. I knew that the sun rose in the morning and it went down in the evening time. And I learned that, you try to have a breakfast meal and maybe a lunch meal and a dinner meal. So you're getting into the patterns of humans are very, we are very scheduled and very oriented in a scheme, a pattern. We like patterns. We like habits. So as time rolls on, you learn, that basically, hey, you learn reality from unreality. You learn from so by about the time I was 4 or 5, I knew pretty much what standard reality was supposed to be. This is this. What you see, feel, taste, smell, and touch is the reality, the world that I live in. So when things begin to defy the laws of this reality that we're based upon as children, as young adults, as like, no, this is real. And then something occurs that is unreal. I'm like, whoa. That's what shocks you. That is the shock factor that happens. And I think a lot of these incidences become these stamped experiences, like a tattoo on your brain. I mean, or like a stamp or a scar or a laser beam of light of some sort that, come through, So I think it's just incredible that myself and others have discovered that there is another dimensional realm that lives parallel into this one. I think that time and space share the physical dimensionalities of a home, a place, a graveyard, where basically once your spirit leaves your body, that you enter into a dimensional realm of a different experience, a different existence. And I think that sometimes those two realms can kind of intertwine between themselves. And I believe that happens on occasion. And then I also believe that certain people are affected or can see. I think that your mind is a filter of the existence that you perceive in this reality. I think some people's minds are built differently, anatomically. I think that people see things that other people don't see. And I just I remember thinking many, many moons ago, many decades ago as a kid or whatever, and I was like, hey, I think that it would have been better to be a person that just, I mean, at that time, I've changed my mind since then. But I do believe that I think that it would have been a better situation growing up as a child where you weren't afflicted by ghosts that basically taunt you or come to you in the night. Yeah, that was uncomfortable for a long time. And I have sought some help. Even I'm doing more in my latter years than I ever did before in my younger years. I think that I blocked it all out and I just said, hey, it's just, this is weird, that's weird. You can live your life, because you're busy. I was busy being a family guy. I was busy trying to make enough money to feed the family. I was busy trying to get things done like most people do in life. I was too busy to go, the lights are going off in the kitchen and going back on again and off again and on again. And, okay, so what? You kind of get to a point where it's like, what's more important? Excuse me, the ghost in the house or, getting some rest that night. So, you wake up the next day and you're like, okay, I'm not maimed or injured. So let it be, The second most terrifying thing that happened to me as a child was when I was roughly, I believe, between 4 and 5 years old. And this is the one that really got me. And you got to remember, this was early, I don't know what year, 70, 71, 72. And basically, I remember that I had a little purple sweater that I wore. I was young. I was before school time. And we didn't have kindergarten when I started school. And had my little purple sweater. And I remember there was this little small wicker chair that just fit me just like a glove. And in this cabin that I keep talking about, referring to, that I remember that there was a stairwell in front. We call it the attic. And the TV kind of set up against the wall of the stairwell. And I remember that my mother at the time, I could see her down a short hallway into the kitchen. And for some reason, it was a great day because you got to understand, it's a different time. And I had gotten a bowl of SpaghettiOs, which was, it was like, good day. Good day with SpaghettiOs. So I sat there, had my SpaghettiOs, and for some odd reason, I still kind of remember the old black and white Lone Ranger series that used to come on a channel called WTTG out of Washington, D.C. It was one of the only major channels that we could get with an antenna at the time. And, I'm getting ready to get into my SpaghettiOs, and Lone Ranger was on, and I was having a fantastic day. And then suddenly I got this very strange feeling that kind of permeated my chest and my stomach and my throat area. It was a cold, energetic type of feeling. And I was like, what? And I happened to kind of look upward into the shadows, into the shaft of the stairwell there. And to my horror, I saw 3 small, dark beings that kind of, if you took a Tic Tac and you painted it black or some kind of opaque black with tiny little legs, sort of. It's not exactly it, but they came down. I know this sounds absolutely insane, and trust me, I know it sounds insane. They came down the stairs in unison. 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. And as soon as I saw them, I knew it was wrong. I knew it was not correct. I knew that reality, this isn't supposed to happen. This isn't supposed to go on. This isn't supposed to be happening, especially to me. You know, I'm a good little kid. You know, I'm just like, what is going on? So I went to scream. I did. I tried to scream. And somehow my intelligence knew that they had some type of power over me. And it was like they shot this invisible tractor beam or some type of, to cut to the story, they locked my vocal cords. I could not scream and I could not move. And I was trying to move so hard that I remembered I could feel the bones inside of my fingers moving while the outer part of my fingers and hands were locked in place. And I was in a world of abject panic. And from there on, from that moment that I realized that I was locked, frozen, couldn't scream, couldn't get help. And that is a very, very helpless feeling. Then it sort of translated out to a type of somewhat of an outer body experience thing. I think I don't know if it was from the fear or just it was meant to happen that way. That I saw myself being moved, lifted up, and carried by these beings back up the stairwell and up to what we call the attic. Yeah. And the attic was dark, and it was full of old furniture and old things from my grandparents' era, boxes and books and knickknacks and different weird stuff that just lived up there in a world of dust and cobwebs, okay, and darkness. Don't forget the damn darkness. And I knew that. It was like a very scary, forbidden place for me to think about, to acknowledge that it was there. Okay, so that happened, and boom. I mean, I'm telling you, for anybody that's listening to this crazy story, I have no recollection afterwards. It's like, it was like you took me out of a roll of film, and that was a scene that has lived by itself for 5 decades of my existence. Yeah. So afterwards, later in time, as I got older, per se, you know, you begin to live with a weird secret, you know, of some weird secretive thing. There was no, I don't know. I felt like such a solo individual in this world because this happened. And I remember as time went on, I mean, not a large amount of time, but I remember going to my mother at the time. And you know how parents just push things off and away and blah, whatever. That I said, these things are happening to me. I'm experiencing these things are coming to get me. And my mother just said, I'll never forget it. She goes, don't worry about it. They're just friendly thoughts. I'm like, what? I mean, I'm a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, and I'm like trying desperately to get some type of parental aid. I need to be saved. I need some security here. I need some freaking compassion and some safety. Well, you learn early that sometimes there is no safety from these things. I don't know. So, later in time, I remember that I developed this type of signal ability, or whatever you want to call it, that when they were coming to get me, to put it simply, I could feel them before they came. And, I remember 3 very distinct episodes, and more than that. Some were lighter than others, but I just remember being in the cabin by myself, and I guess you look back, I mean, for parents today, back then, I'm just telling you, I'm not saying my parents were horrible. I'm just saying it was the freaking 70s, okay? So you lived and you learned, and that's how you played, and whatever. Generation X, right? X, yeah. So, I was in the cabin, and I remember one time I was in there alone, and it was during the daytime. And I felt that feeling again, that they were coming. And I remember trying to go to the front door of the cabin where you can get out. And of course the latch wouldn't work, the lock wouldn't work, we didn't have knobs. It was a kind of a door handle thing with a spring on the top, and it wouldn't work, of course. And boom, there's another episode of, hey, things happening, Another time happened, this was early, where I watched my grandmother came over, and they were sitting at like a little card table, small table, looked like a card table. And my mother was talking to her, and they were chit-chatting, and I was just a kid kind of flipping and flopping around, just being there kind of thing. And all of a sudden, I watched them slow down. Their movements slowed down. Their voice slowed. And boom, they froze. They just slowed down to where they were just not moving anymore. And I was standing there watching that. Like, what? That was my attitude. It's like, what's happening? What is that? What is happening to me? What is happening in my world? That happened. And I've talked to a spiritual therapist once, and I explained to her about this subject, and the only thing I was trying to gain some insight to is what happened to me. what happened to me to where I still have these memories, and I remember one time, it was here again around the same age area, 6, 7-ish, that we had in this cabin. It had a really long table, and it was old. It was probably it was leftovers from the colonial time. I'm telling you, stuff was old, and it was probably Thanksgiving or something. And my brother was there, my mother, father, grandparents were there, and this is going to be really bizarre. But I do recollect I'm just going to throw it out there, okay? So just go with it. Whatever this thing was, this entity, whatever this power was, it had the ability to separate my consciousness, okay? So I'm aware of this. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but I'm just throwing it out there. So, and what they did is, while everyone else was in the room, whatever this thing, this powerful entity thing, came in, separated my consciousness. It lifted me up. And I remember I was sitting in this wicker, chair, like Indian style, my legs crossed, and I lifted up, and I floated close to the beams of the ceiling, and I floated all the way around, looking down upon them, sitting, eating, chatting, laughing, and I can't tell you if I was still in the chair or not, but they had no idea that I was gone. And this powerful, whatever it is or was, had lifted me up, and I was floating at the level of the ceiling, and it had me hover over, and then I guess, I'm assuming, because I have no more memory after that we lifted up into the attic again, the darkness. That place, yeah, wow. And that was horrible, So, talking to the first spiritual therapist I went to, I said, look, I'm a skeptic. I'm talking about paranormal, I'm talking about ghosts, I'm talking about these weird events that are occurring to me, but I'm still looking at it as scientifically as I can. Why not? I mean, I think it's the right way to look at anything, because not everything is supernatural. Not everything is paranormal. Some of it has a natural explanation. It does. And I'm fully for that. And I said, look, can you help me, please? I mean, because I'm not losing my mind. That's the weirdest shit about this stuff, is that I've always been able to digest it, handle it. I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder from this. I just have this weird portion of my life that has existed for 5 decades. Okay? It just, boom, it has. It has. So, I'm not saying it's aliens. I'm not saying that. Although I did have some type of very young interest in UFOs. I have all my life. And a part of me thinks that it was some sort of Alien intervention, yes. I have looked into the idea that these were some type of elemental beings that live in a multidimensional situation. I think that the cabin, excuse me, itself was a portal of energy. I don't know. But I think if it did have a vortex or a portal of some type of energetic situation, that it manifested itself from the attic somewhere. And I have since sought help from a psychic advisor as of recent, and she is advising me, guiding me. Here again, ladies and gentlemen, I still take everything with a big old boulder of salt, a big grain of salt. And I'm like, well, could it be my imagination? Maybe. Sure. But this stuff has not gone away my whole life. If you're a kid and you're having these very imaginative fantasies or whatnot, I could see that. I could see children inventing ideas from this or that, but when I was 5 years old, my favorite television show was H&R Puffin Stuff. It wasn't getting abducted by some energy being of some sort. That's my thing. Yeah, and so if any of you that are listening to this, if you have an idea or some type of interceding similar experience to what I have gone through as a child, man, I would really love for you to call in and talk to me about it. Because, I feel still to this day, I still feel pretty alone with this life experience. I do. I feel very alone. And if other people have experienced anything like that, I would really love to hear about it, because it's important to me, because I'm trying to balance out, my existence. Does that sound weird? Because, a lot of people can, and I've talked to a therapist about this, a lot of people can live with the fact that something traumatic has happened to them. The human mind can fathom it, it can digest it, you can release emotion from it, and hopefully move on. You can talk about it like I'm doing now, and this is believe it or not, this is a type of release for me, even still talking about it today. So again, I really appreciate your time downloading this podcast and listening to this. And this is going to sound crazy too, okay? So there's a lot of stuff on this podcast that will be crazy. So this psychic advisor of mine, not advisor, I mean, I go to learn is what I do. She's kind of a mentor or teacher. I'm trying to figure out what I am as well. I'm trying to disseminate what is going on, but what she explained to me is that supposedly we all have guides of some sort, spiritual guides or people that we don't see that are around us that help us and that kind of thing. And I guess some people call them angels, or some people call them guides, or some people call them helpers, whatever. But she indicated that, and I told her, I said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna do a podcast on the subject." And she was like, "They want you, being me, to talk about this stuff." And I'm like, "What? Really?" And she said, "Yeah." And so far, within diving into this situation, into diving into this little endeavor, that it's been really good so far. I mean, it's come together fairly easily, more easily than I thought it would, and some of it has to do with I've just already owned the equipment. And I'm a video guy anyway, so we got the lights up, and we got the camera going, and we got the podcast thing here going, and we've got the telephones ready, and I've got the little stand ready to film my ugly mug, and it's there we are. So that came together. So then, I'm going rambling here a little bit, but anyway, I went and got on the podcasting feed, and I thought it was going to be more complicated. That kind of came together, and that has been all right so far, and it's reached out a bit so far on one podcast. This is the second one, and I was like, hey, that's cool. So it's kind of come together. So it's weird that I'm being able to release some of this angst of what has occurred on this format, and it's been nice to talk about it. I have really talked to some really cool people that have had a lot of the same experiences on a ghostly effect, of people that are just like normal. I don't consider myself overly normal, but anyway, normal people that have gone, yeah, man, I lived in this house one time and it was like crazy and we had to move out, and it's like, damn. And or I talked to a lady just the other day that she said she had worked in an old hotel where she figured out over a period of time that there was some type of ghostly entity that was hiding keys and taking the cell phone away from her, and hiding it, and then at the end of her shift it would show up in her purse or whatever, her bag. And I was like, whoa. And she was kind of a very pragmatic type of personality, where she's, you don't live in that kind of atmosphere to where, that, we're living amongst the spiritual realm within our own existence of living as living human beings in this realm of, reality. So it's like, damn, it's cool. So, I've been, happy so far, and, it's reached out a bit here in the United States, and I'm pleased about that. So basically, if, I'm going to continue this on, as time goes on, and produce, an episode every week, and, keep it going, it'll pick up as time goes on. And, we do also have, a Facebook, it's, Ghost Stories with J.J. Allen on the Facebook thing. We have that. I haven't got Twitter yet or Instagram. But I think in time, everything will follow up with that. And, the podcast is out on most of the major feeds out there. iHeartRadio and, Deezer, as well as, I think it's Amazon and, Spotify. And there's a few others in there. It kind of automatically uploads to everything, which is kind of cool. And basically, we've got the website, which is jjallenghoststories.com. So if you would like to just stop by there, I do also post the podcasts on the website, free to listen to. And if you guys would like to call in We do every Sunday, whatever Sunday it is of the month. We start at 4 p.m. Eastern Central Time in Virginia, Eastern Time. I like to do a little intro for a few minutes, and then people can call in about 4:10 p.m. and we can go as long as you want to go. I kind of dedicate this time for how long it goes. So, like I say, if you've got a crazy ghost story or something that's happened to you, we would really love to hear it. I think that other people would like to hear other stories as well. So please call in and please, be a part of this. If you want to leave a comment, any kind of review, I'd like to hear it as well, because I have thick skin and I think it's good to be critiqued a bit and to figure out if you're doing a good job or not. I'm always about self-improvement. So I'm not afraid of that as well. So anyway, I guess we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you again, guys, for listening, and appreciate your time. And thank you. So let's continue on with the journey to self-discovery. See you on the next one around. Bye.